In the deepest of the deep seas lies the Lurk. It is dark but clear, cold but habitable, and a swell of life begins where land ends. In underwater villages reside the Nautilus. They are the keepers of a rare power source called Underether. Topside, a cog would give his left leg for a small glimpse of the material, and will kill who they must in order to make it theirs. The Nautilus defend their way of life and their precious ether. The low clans grumble and mutter of a forgotten era when they were once mighty. The ancients awaken from their deep slumber to seek vengeance on those they once trusted. Rivals Masters of the Deep is a fun, tactical miniatures board game for 2 to 4 players from ages 10 and up. Set in the world of Rivals, where Cog, Nautilus, Low Clansmen, and the Ancients engage in underwater combat and interact with the board itself. Creatures of the Lurk will come out of hiding. Coral can help or hinder. Underwater riptides will batter you all as you fend off your opponent. Will you fight alongside the topside ironclad Cog? Will you harness the power and speed of the water-breathing Nautilus? Will you take up the call of your low clans brethren? Or will you wreak havoc upon the lesser races with the Ancients? Look through our pledge levels and help us bring this game to reality.
Hey guys, it's Chase from World of Rivals. First off, I wanted to say thank you for being awesome, and I just wanted to say thumbs up. You guys are the best. Just wanted to bring a little bit more attention to the factions themselves. We've had people asking, tell me just a little bit more about the factions. What can they do? What are they? I mean, just want to know a bit more. We've already done some podcasts with a few awesome podcasters that will be coming out, talking a little bit more about them. But I wanted to give you guys a specific video just for you backers that talks just a little bit about the factions. So, first off, the instigators of most of this mess are the Cog. The Lurk is the whole under the sea area that we're talking about, this whole under the sea world in Rivals. And the Cog are seeking out this ether that is protected by the Nautilus. The Ancients have actually put on the Nautilus this responsibility of protecting the ether. And guess what? They're not doing a great job because the Cog are coming and they're trying to take it from them. So they're kind of the instigators, started a lot of this mess. The Nautilus, being those protectors, have been over this ether and tried to protect it, but now the Cog are here. The Ancients are upset that they're not doing a good job, and they arise to wreak havoc on anyone. The thing about the Low Clans is the Low Clans have been subservients, these people under the Nautilus for so many generations, and they're finally rising up under the leadership of Grim. And Grim is actually a Nautilus himself and has been just fed up with how the Low Clans have been treated for just all of these generations and help them rise up against their Nautilus masters. The Low Clans, however, want to take control of all of the Lurk, so no matter what, the Cog aren't in their way to do that, and truthfully, the Ancients too. They've kind of given up on those old gods because they are the the gods of the Nautilus. I'm going to go through a little bit about just a few characters on each team and what they do. Ta-da! Look at the plethora of characters that you get to play in World of Rivals. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, just going to go through a little bit from each faction, just what they do, and just give you a little bit more details about that for the game. Let's see here. Let's go through a couple of these. Of course, let's start off with Grim, who's this kind of instigator of this Low Clans uprising. Grim here, whoop, woo, I'm trying to get it straight on the camera. What's awesome about Grim is he does things like cuts off the rations of other players, so he can block a whole row of activation for a player for an entire turn, which really can mess with you for that turn, having a whole row on that activation card completely blocked off, or less actions you can actually take that turn. He does things like demoralizes his enemies, and he can degrade the lowest attack die of someone that's actually, could be attacking him next turn. He can demoralize them before, they attack. And he also has focus. He can focus in on what he wants to do. He's got a little bit of inspiration here from Samurai, if you can't tell. He's got the nice, crab banner, the carapace banner behind him. That's what the crabmen are called in this game, the carapace. So he has focus. Before attacking, he can roll 1 white die, and on a roll of a skull, he can add a black die to his attack. So he can focus in and actually make his attack better for that turn. That's just a little bit about Grimm. The thing about most of low-clans players is they are cheaper in points, but they're also not as strong in their attack and their defense. It kind of balances out the game a little bit there. So just want to tell you a little bit about Grimm. Let's talk about Cinephus Vor a little bit. He's one of the Carapace leaders, heroes in this game. And Cinephus, what's cool about him is he has 3 different actions also. He can do Fire Alley, Practice Makes Perfect, and In a Half Shell. So Fire Alley, all models in a straight line of 3 hexes have to roll for defense. So it's kind of like, it doesn't do a ton of damage, but if they don't roll defense, then they get hurt for 1 hit. Practice Makes Perfect, if targeting the same model that he has targeted this last time, then he can actually get an extra red die for attacking them. And In a Half Shell, if Cinephus does not move for a turn, he actually gains defense. So those Carapace, they have a lot more of defensive abilities, of course, for their shells. Same thing with, Arronax. I'm just going to show a few of these low clans guys. Arronax. Scuttlebrute Hoarders is one of the minions you can have. Of course, the minions have less things they can do, but they also do some fun things too. This is one of my favorite heroes, Urf the Swollen One. And Urf has things like Trample, Bloodthirst, and they're expendable. He doesn't really care too much about his minions and things like that. So just a couple of just highlights for him. Trample, he can actually move through a hex of small rival models and end up on the other side of them, and they all will receive a hit if they don't block it. So it's kind of the cool thing about Urf. He just like plows through. I keep imagining him kind of like a Pokemon who he just says his name. That's the only thing he really says. Or Groot. Yeah, definitely Groot. That's a much better example. And then they're expendable. When Urf is actually attacked, he can give as many wounds as he wants to the friendly minion models that are on adjacent hex to him. So if there's other low clans minions around him, he can just say they take the hit instead of him. So they're expendable. Of course, there's other minions in there. We have Chumtail Soothsayers, who actually use mind tactics, mind blast for some of their attacks. We have Korak, another leader. He's very stealthy and does a lot of just manipulative things in the game. Other minions, the Anglerfin Howlers, which are, what's cool about them is they actually have to roll to see what exactly their attack power is. They could be super strong in one turn, and then they could be not as good the next turn just because of their crazed ability. But they're super cheap too. So, and also the Carapace Bolters. The Bolters just have, they're kind of like that Carapace, just basic unit for the game. Next, we're going to move on. I'm kind of wanting to cover these basic, or not basic, these new factions first, just to give you an idea. We've always talked a little bit about the older Cog and Nautilus, and I will go over them again, but I just want to give more of a highlight for these new factions before really moving on to the Nautilus and the Cog. The Overseer. The Overseer is one of my favorites for the Ancients. He's got a bunch of really, really cool abilities. Just to give you a little bit of highlight, it really makes sense why we named these guys the way we named the Ancients. The Overseer, the Inspire, the Awakener, the Steward, and the Warden, their name actually has to do with their abilities. So the Overseer actually has the ability to take control of other units in the game. Pretty much stealing their units for an entire turn, making them fight against themselves, so on and so forth. He also has things like Paralyze, which, so a lot of what he does affects the units that are, on the opposite team. They have a guy called the Inspirer, and he inspires the lurkers to actually fight for you. So he's one of the most helpful guys in the game because you just go, you reveal a lurker, you roll for it, and try to actually inspire them to, fight for the Ancients because they're the old gods of the lurk anyway. He does things like control schools of pinfish and telepathy and things like that, which, help him out a lot and goes along with the name Inspirer. This is also one of my favorites. He is the only Ancient that is small. So he's actually a smaller unit, but he's got really, really cool abilities. So the Awakener, what's really cool about the Awakener is he can go and spend ether. Most people will spend ether to use abilities. His is he spends ether in order to awaken what's called etherlings. So these Aetherlings can actually go fight for you. And I'll show you a little bit of the models here, going through. But the Awakener, that's the way you actually get Aetherlings into play, is using the Awakener. So that's another reason why you might consider purchasing some more of the minis down below in the add-ons, because if you plan on using the Awakener, maybe you want to just keep spending ether the whole game and just keep bringing more and more Aetherlings into the game to attack for you. And he does things like he has the bond. So before taking an attack with the Awakener, he can actually spend an ether in order to attack with all of the Aetherlings on one hex. So you're pretty much getting extra activations, extra attack by using the Awakener. So instead of using just the Awakener's 2 basic white attack, you can use an entire hex of Aetherlings to attack for you. The Steward, what's really cool about him is he does a lot of stuff with the coral itself. So things like one of my favorite things he does is called the Coral Wall. So if he's next to a hex and he doesn't want someone on the opposite side of that hex to attack him or get to him, he can do what's called a Coral Wall there and places an entire wall that can't be swum up on top of. So it's really, really helpful to have a Steward on your side just for even defense. He also does things like Curative Coral, which allows for some of the coral spots to actually heal you. So he comes in as kind of a healer unit for the Ancients also. And he also does something called Counter. So during defense, all the extra shields that are rolled beyond what he's being attacked with, it actually becomes unblockable hits towards the attacker. So just really, really, really fun stuff with the Steward. More of that healer defensive unit, but that counter ability does definitely help. And last for the heroes of the Ancients is the Warden. So the Warden, what's really cool about him, he's the Warden of the Lurk. That's the idea. He can make whirlpools and sinking sand and making the tides flow. So whenever he is drawing an event card, if it's the Shifting Tides card, he actually gets to pick the directions that the tides shift in the game during that event. So he's pretty powerful with getting to choose what he wants to really happen, how he wants to manipulate the Lurk. Other than that, there's Whirlpool, which allows him to kind of send a whirlpool into a hex and scatters people throughout that hex. So this guy, he just really, really messes with your team. On top of the events that already happened during the game, he can really use some of those events and things and make it really tough for you. So that's the 2 new factions in the game. And I'm going to go a little bit more quickly over the older factions, the Cog and the Nautilus. So the Cog, what's really, really cool about the Cog is, of course, they're the steampunk group. It's actually my favorite group, led by Theodore P. Stevedore. And a lot of these newer, or actually older groups, the Cog and the Nautilus, they do a lot more just attack abilities, defense abilities, things like that, but they're actually pretty strong units too. So like Theodore, for instance, has 2 black defense, which are 2 of the best dice in the game, and then he also has 1 black, 1 red attack die for attacking. So already a strong unit, and he has some really, really cool leadership abilities too, being the leader of the Cog. He has things like Barker, so boost a current or an adjacent hex, and all models in that hex actually get a red die to their defense. So as long as they have that boost, that Barker boost in their hex, then they can just use it to actually add some defense to them. So it's a really, really good way to make it to where people can't hit you as easily. He also has things like Brush It Off, and that's actually a free. This X right here means it's a free ability. So what's really cool about this free ability is he can re-roll one of his opponent's attack dice. So if someone's actually attacking Theodore saying, hey, I want to attack Theodore, then he can be like, okay, attack me, and then do a Brush It Off, and he can actually make them re-roll one of their attack die. Really, really super helpful. What's cool about Theodore, he's a range character, so he can also do some damage from some range. One close combat person is Tobias, the Songsmith. He's one of the stronger characters in the game with 2 black attack die, but he's also got things like Weak Point, and the target opponent can't count their exploding shields. So we've talked a little bit about exploding shields and exploding hits in the game. Exploding hits is if you get an exploding hit on that die, which I'll show. If you get an exploding hit on that die, then you get to roll an extra red die. If you get an exploding shield during defense, then you get to roll an extra shield, or roll an extra red die for, trying to get some more shields too. So he's got that. He's also got things called Swipe. And in Swipe, he can actually target a character and 2 adjacent hexes. So he can attack one guy over here and one guy over here. Just Lots of really, really cool abilities for these guys. J-Pots is kind of the healer. He has an ability called Handyman. And Handyman allows him to give an adjacent friendly model 1 heart. So he's the healer unit of the group, but he also has a good range on him and has something with his revolver called Double Shot. He can perform an entire attack again. So if he pays 3 ether, he can then just attack again. So he doesn't have the best attack with 2 reds, but he gets to try it twice. Let's see here. Other heroes we have for them is Joffrey. Joffrey's the guy with the shotgun going around blasting multiple units and hexes, and he has a little bit extra defense because of his armor being just top notch. And then we also have Reginald M. Hornblower. So Reginald is that range unit of the group. He's got 5 range with 1 red and 1 black attack. He can do things called down the scope to add extra dice to his attack, and he does things called domino effect, which makes it to where he can hit units in multiple hexes that are right behind each other. He also has some other abilities too, but we're kind of just going over some just a little bit for each faction. Minions wise, we have the Automaton. We actually got the brand new art for this. This is just an older card that I'm using right now, and I might show that off right here. Bing. And the cool things about the Automaton is they can do things that manipulate the land a little bit because they're just so strong, doing things like landslide by hitting the ground. You can move all rivals from 1 hex to a chosen adjacent hex, which is really, really nice when wanting to just manipulate the way another person plays the game. He also has a thing called Shockwave. So after attacking with this model, if a target is destroyed, he can then go and all the rivals that are in that same hex get a damage. So if he kills someone in a hex, then the other 2 people get damaged, so it's a Shockwave. Just really, really fun abilities with him. He's one of the more expensive units for the COG, but he's also one of the more fun ones to play, and a large character. We also have some more of the basic units of the COG. The Clockwork Wrenchman, which we also have the new artwork for. This is a little bit older. And the Clockwork Rifleman. So it's these automaton bots that go and fight for the COG. They're cheaper units, so you want to use them. But they don't have as many abilities. They don't have as many hearts. As you can see, they only have 2 hearts, so if they get hit twice, sometimes even in 1 attack, they could die. They're a little bit weaker, but they have really, really cool abilities that work with other automatons and things like that. They have the Drone, which is another healer unit. He's got first aid, kind of repairs the diving suits or the automatons in the game. And he has things like Cast Net. Cast Net is actually one of the coolest abilities in the game. And what Cast Net does is all models that are on a chosen hex can't move, and they suffer degraded defense die until they do the recover ability. And it's a range too, so he can kind of shoot a net out there and capture some people and just hold them there in case he doesn't want them to get too close. Also, since he's a minion, he's got less hearts, a little bit easier to die. But that is the COG, and some of the reasons I love the COG so much is those abilities, and plus I just love automatons. So last but not least, we have the Nautilus. And for so many, including my brother who helped me make the game, the Nautilus is his favorite, and I'm assuming a lot of other people's favorites too, because they're very tentacle beardy. That's my word for them, the tentacle beards. So Algernon Chiffchaff is the leader of the Nautilus. What's cool about Algernon is he has things like Warcry, Prophetic Vision, and also Mulligan. Mulligan comes in very, very handy in this game with this leader. So Warcry, what it does is actually boosts in a hex that can actually be two hexes away, and that hex gains +1 red to any attack. So anyone on that hex, if they get that Warcry ability, he kind of encourages them to do better. He also has Prophetic Vision, so he can kind of see what's coming and has the ability to upgrade his weakest defense die, which is really, really nice because he can see what's coming. And then, of course, a Mulligan. So after he performs an attack, he can actually re-roll 1 of his attack die, which comes in very, very handy, especially if you're a terrible roller of dice. You'll definitely want to put Algernon in your starting lineup. We also have Jules. Jules the Lightbringer. He has a healing touch. He's that healer of the group. Helps people that for 2 hearts, so he's a really good healer. He also has things called Flash, so he can degrade a target rival's weakest defense die. And he's got Friend to All. So he is one of the few people that can go and touch and search a lurker tile, and he won't be attacked by it. If Jules targets a lurker himself, then they can attack him. But he can go and kind of just search out things. He's a friend to all, and it actually comes in very, very handy. He's also kind of like the magical character of the Nautilus, so he's got a range of 4 with his awesome weapon of ether here, and you can see that in the model also. Bing! But that's Jules. Next we have Brighton the Bare Knuckle. We've got, a lot of fun fan fiction from him. He's got a thing called Razorfin Punch. A Razorfin is a lurker we haven't quite revealed yet, but is definitely a lurker. And he's got what's called a Razorfin Punch. In our fiction, we actually talk about how he can kill a Razorfin with 1 punch. So if he uses his Razorfin Punch ability, he can add a red to his attack, a red die. He's also got Hook, so he can target 2 rivals. Hook, both of them. And then he also has Give Order. So during his turn, he may give a friendly model a movement ability to kind of get them moving along a little bit quicker. He's one of the stronger Nautilus with his +2 black die for his attack. We also have Dorian the Top Knot. Dorian is our swordsman of the Nautilus, and he has some really, really cool abilities like Containment and Backslash and Poison Blade. So he goes through what Containment does. It's really, really helpful for Dorian, because if anyone tries to use exploding dice against him, he can pay 3 ether and contain it and make it to where they only count as single hits rather than this explosive hit that they keep getting more and more dice to attack him with. He also has Backslash, which gives him the ability on a successful attack, he may then attack another model. And then Poison Blade. So he has the ability, so if he is also free. And this free ability, he has the ability to attack, and on a successful attack, poison the targeted model. And he can only poison 1 model, but it's still pretty sweet. Then, last hero of the Nautilus, Eleanor Eudora Lash. Eleanor, what's awesome about her, she actually has some really, really good abilities for the Nautilus, and is one of the would be my top choice for support character for the Nautilus. She has Femme Fatale and Adrenaline Musk, which really help out with your defense and your attack during the game. So Adrenaline Musk, what's really cool about the Adrenaline Musk is she can boost her current or an adjacent hex and actually upgrade the weakest attack die of anyone that's on that hex. So another just really, really good support character that boosts whoever she wants to with that Adrenaline Musk. She also has Confusion. So whenever a targeted rival pretty much whenever someone tries to target her, she can spend 1 and give them Confusion so they attack someone else. Just protects her a little bit, being that support character. And then Femme Fatale. So the targeted rival that she's attacking, it's a free ability. Targeted rival actually has to degrade their weakest defense die. So she's a sweet, sweet support character, but also, I'd say a strong character in herself. So there's also the minions of the Nautilus, the Trench Gunner and the Trench Runner. Okay, so the Trench Gunner, of course, these are minions, so they're weaker, of course. They're cheaper, though, so you can get a little bit more of them on the board. They also have things called Splitting Arrow. So if this model rolls 3 or more hits, which, is already kind of iffy if you can roll that many. But if they do, you can give in 1 extra damage to whoever you're attacking. So if they happen to do good, you can actually do even better than what you normally would do. And then with the Trench Runner, they have a thing called Phalanx, so they can actually support each other trench runners in the game. So they can choose a model in the same hex as this model, and they can actually use their highest defense die. So let's just say, right now, they have 1 red, 1 white. But if they were on a model or the same hex as Algernon, for instance, they could use Phalanx, which is 2 ether, and use Algernon's defense die, which is better than their own. So they kind of support each other, other Nautilus characters, and can make it a little bit harder to hit those basic trench runners. Then we have 2 more characters left for the entire game. One being the Shaman. Awesome range character. He has things like Prophetic Charge, Curse of the Ancients, and Ritual Dance. Like I said at the beginning of the video, these guys are, they do worship the Ancients. The Ancients gave them this, responsibility to protect the ether anyway. So these are kind of the shaman, the main worshippers of the ancients, and they have things like prophetic charge. When rival attacks, use one of the model's attack die as your defense. So it's pretty nice. You can actually use something they roll as your own defense. So it's pretty nice. Curse of the Ancients, they can hit each model in 1 hex. So what's awesome about that ability is they have range, so they can pretty much hit everyone on a hex rather than just targeting a single model. Really, really handy. They don't have the best attack, but if you can still use that weaker attack against a lot more people, it's still going to be very, very helpful for you. And then they have Ritual Dance, so they will dance around and they will heal units. Another healer. So last but not least, and this again is old artwork, so I hope I can show you some newer stuff, but the 3-headed dogfish. 3-headed dogfish is kind of like the big monster unit of the Nautilus. They're more expensive, as you can see here. Whoop, maybe. Whoop, there we go. They're more expensive and they're large. They take up an entire hex themselves, but they have things called Hunger Instinct, which makes them deal 1 damage even if your attack isn't successful. So no matter what, these guys are hungry, they're ravenous, so they go in, they have 3 heads. I mean, so no matter what, even if your attack isn't successful, you're going to do a little bit of damage, whether that be from one of their fins hitting you in the face or whatever. They're going to get a little bit of a damage no matter what if they attack you. So that is, of course, if you spend 2 ether. Most of these abilities are still, cost something. And then they have Frenzy. And Frenzy, what's awesome about it, if you're injured, if this character right here is injured, he actually gets a white die for each wound. And these guys have, 2, 4, 6, 7 hearts, so 7 abilities to take on a wound. So if they have 6 wounds, they get 6 white die in order to defend themselves. Actually attacking. So their attacks become a lot more powerful with that white die for each wound. So that's all the factions, just a little bit of highlights of all the factions. We didn't go through every single character and every single ability, but I hope this gives you just a clear, understanding that each one of these factions is super fun, has their own quirkiness to each one, their own special abilities, a very different, kind of attack from each one. The Cog being more of an attack group, the Nautilus being more of a defense group, the Ancients being the abilities to control and manipulate, and the Low Clans coming in with masses. So I hope this gives you clear understanding, or a little bit more clear understanding of everything in the game, factions, models, and just keep supporting, keep pushing. We appreciate everybody and all your help. Thank you.